Okay, so we're starting on the bottom of Chesam and Beis by the two dots. Yeah. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Chulu. Rabbi Yehuda said in the Mishnah that the Hayakarav and Esrafek, the Mishnah said, Hareza Kasher, if a person was related, right, and then the person who made the relationship died, the person in the middle, then the Mishnah said that according to the Tanakama, the Rabbanan, it's kasher. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Afilu meisabita," even if his daughter died, but v'yesh le'banim mimena, the person, the son-in-law has kids from that daughter, then harei zakarev is zakarev. So Zak the Gemara, Amrav Tancham, Amrav Tavla, Amrav Bruna, Amrav. Rav Tancham said name Rav Tavla, name Rav Bruna, name Rav Halacha, Rabbi Yehuda, lachs like Rabbi Yehuda, that it would be considered still connected, still a karev. Rav Amar Rav Nachman ain't a lach Rabbi Yehuda. Rav said the name of Rav Nachman that the halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda. Chinam Rabbi Bar Chana Rabbi Yochanan ain't a lach Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Bar Chana also said the name of Rabbi Yochanan that the halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda. Now, some learned, they had a Kabbalah that this memra of Rabbi Bar Chana and name Rabbi Yochanan saying that halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda on the following. That it said, Azu Darash Rabbi Aglili. This is Rabbi Aglili Darshan, this pasuk. It says, Avasa Alakainim Halavim, Balashef Darshia Be'amhem. Pasuk says that you should, when you have a Torah, you should go to the Kainim, the Levim, the Talmid Chachamim, and the Shefet that'll be in that day. Well, you have a time machine over here. You're going to go to a shefet that doesn't exist in your day. I'm going to go to the Bezdin of Hillel Azakim. Right? It doesn't work, right? So what's that? What's it saying? This is talking about a case of a dayan who used to be a karev, and now someone was nifter, and now he's not a karev anymore. So by Yamim Ha'hem, Mashiach by Yamim Ha'hem, he's not related. You can go to the Kain who the Shefet now is not related. But it used to be he was related. So that's sort of right. And that's sort of basically Darshans. Rabbi Bar Chana, Rabbi Yochanan, Lach Rabbi Aglili, and Rabbi Bar Chana said, name Rabbi Yochanan, Lach is like Rabbi Aglili, which means he's paskening a lot like Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda said he's still related. Okay, so that's why Tamar said before that some said Rabbi Bar Chana, who said before that halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda. Over here it says the halacha is like Rabbi Yosi, and Rabbi Aglili, and Rabbi Aglili is arguing with Rabbi Yehuda. Bnei Chamud Mar Ukva, the sons of the father-in-law of Mar Ukva. So Mar Ukva had a sister, okay, and the sister. I'm sorry, Mar Ukva had a wife, and the wife had brothers. Right. So it's Mar Ukva's brother-in-law. So his shvera's sons were his brother-in-law, right? So Kravim and Nisrach, they were Kravim and they became Nisrachik. Why? Because Mar Ukva's wife was Niftar.
Everyone's dying in these cases.
This is the case
real
we're
story.
talking about.
Yeah. Make it up.
So she was Niftar. So now they were Kravim and Nisrach. So Kravim and Nisrach Avu Asul Kamiladina. They came to Mar Ukva for a din Torah. They wanted him he was going to be the dayan for that.
Can't do that.
Amr lahu, he told them, Pasal l'chuladina. I'm pasal, I can't be a judge for you.
I'm not related.
Amr le my daitach Rabbi Yehuda. Why you're holding like Rabbi Yehuda that says that we're still connected? Anan my silin negrasami marava. We have a letter from Eretz Yisrael that says in it, Ein halach Rabbi Yehuda. The halach is not like Rabbi Yehuda. So therefore, we're okay. I mean, you're okay to be our dayan. Amr lahu, he told them, Atu bekava dekira edvakna bechu d'lei kamina pasilna l'chuladina. Do you think that I'm attached with a kav of wax that I'm connected to with you? And that's why.
Thing? What? Money thing? That much?
Not a money thing. No, he was saying an expression. You think I'm stuck to you
like
because we're still connected. We're still connected, and therefore I'm a karev to you, and that's why I'm saying I'm puzzle. Like you think you're taped to me, or you think you're glued to me? You're not glued to me. I'm not saying I'm puzzled to you.
Let's say she was married for 30 years, and then 30 years they had good friends. All of a sudden she dies. She's like,
but he's saying,
still related.
Well, you're asking the other way around. You're saying that why don't you say that the fact
have connection, you still know the guy, you were friendly with.
So the answer is that I was designated a wedding yesterday when I wasn't here.
Yeah.
And I was sitting next to somebody who was divorced, and he makes a crack about his former brother-in-law.
Ex-brother-in-law, right?
His ex-brother-in-law.
At his ex-brother-in-law? About?
I didn't chop the joke, and okay. I don't know who his ex-brother-in-law is. But you can see the guy does not have any connection with his ex-brother-in-law once he was divorced from his wife.
Well, that could be yes or no, depending on the situation.
Okay, I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
So
it could be worse. It could be an enemy now.
It could be. So if it's an enemy and they can't talk to each other, that's the other case in the Mishnah that we had a machlekes about. Okay, which we're actually about to discuss in the Gemara. Right. So anyway, Mar Ukva was saying to them, I'm not being puzzled for a dayan for you because I'm a karev, because I'm not a karev. You're right. It sounds like he's saying we paskin not like Rabbi Yehuda. But the fact is, you guys don't listen to Din Torah, you don't listen to the dayan, and I'm not being a dayan for somebody who's loit sayistin, doesn't listen to the dayan. The Mishnah continued and said, Ayev zeshashvina. The Ayev is the person who's a shashvin, the person who escorts him to his wedding. V'kama, for how long is that person considered an Ayev that he's considered that he's disqualified to be a dayan or an aid? To be a dayan or an aid, right? Amrav Abba, Amrav Yirmiyah, Amrav Kol Shivas Yimei Mishnah. All 7 days of the Mishnah, all 7 days of Shav Brachas, he's going to be disqualified. Even from the first day onward, he's okay. It's already the closeness is all the way at the beginning. But and he could be an aid right away, but right after the wedding from the first day on. Hasaine, and the Mishnah continued and said somebody who hates somebody else, that means he's a saine, he's an enemy, so he can't be, according to this Tana, he cannot be an aid or a dayan. Tana Rabban said, the pasuk says that the person is not his enemy. Rashi explains that this pasuk is talking about the case of somebody hit someone by mistake, right? He killed someone by mistake. We have all these Gemaras and Machas about this. Pasuk says, he hit him with a stone without seeing. It fell on him, and he died. He is not his enemy and doesn't want his evil. Rashi says this is not talking about the person who killed him. He's saying that it's got to be talking about the aid. The aid who saw this is not his ayev. Because there are a lot of other psukim that talk about the fact that a person kills somebody. Rashi quotes a pasuk, there are other psukim that talk about a hater in the context of the person who killed the person b'shegeg. But so this we're darshaning this. The Gemara, the Brisa says we're darshaning this. That's talking about the Eidim. So this person is not an enemy. Yidenu. So therefore he could be an aid, which teaches us we could extrapolate from that if he is an ayev, he cannot be an aid. Right? So that's a makar for this halach in the Mishnah. And the pasuk continues, he doesn't want his bad to happen. Therefore, yidinanu, he could be a dayan for him. But if he does want his bad, or he is his enemy, he can't be a dayan, he can't be an aid. Mar says, Ashkan Saini. So then we have a makar for somebody who hates somebody else, he can't be a dayan or an aid. I have known, how do you know about somebody who loves somebody else? Karibei hachi. Read this like this. He's not an ayev, an enemy, and not a lover, not a friend to him. Yidenu, then he could say this. And he doesn't want his bad or his good. Yidenu, so it could be a dayan. Fact the Gemara, you can't stick this into the pasuk. Midi ayev ksiv. It doesn't say the word ayev there, so it's really a stretch to darshan this into the pasuk. When the pasuk says only saying the negative side, but it means the positive side also. Ela svara, what's svara? Ayev my taima mishum derach kadaite. The pasuk says an ayev. The pasuk, we do have a pasuk for an ayev, for an enemy. We have a pasuk that says v'ulay ayev like. Right. So what's the reason why an ayev is no good? Because his das is very distant from the person. He's not going to be able to
judge fairly.
Yeah. Ayev nami mekarvadaite. So by ayev,
unless you're a regular guy, you can't do it. If you ayev or anything.
Rabbanon. In fact, the Gemara, this drasha we said is according to the Tana that argues, and the Tana Kama that says that an ayev and a sainei cannot be edim and dayanim. The Rabbanon who argue with that, because the Rabbanon say an ayev and a sainei cannot be dayanim, but they could be edim. So what are they going to do with this pasuk? What are they going to do with the same pasuk? Gemara says chad l'dayin. One is to tell you that a dayan cannot be a Yev or a Sinai, and he could be an aid because they said Shal or not Nechshad that they're going to say aid is falsely because they like the guy or they don't like the guy. But a dayan, it's not that we're chayshit that he's going to do something wrong on purpose. It's just when you like a guy, you cannot see, you don't see his faults, right? You know, I have teenagers already, and
married daughter already. Also,
I have married daughter already, and we had discussions with my kids over the years. You know, if your friend said this to you,
would you report him to the police if you kill somebody?
No, you'd be perfectly fine with it. But your parent says it to you, and you're all upset, right? So what's pshat? Because a teenager has trouble with his parents, right? But he's no trouble with his friends. So it's the same thing over here. The dayan, even though it's the same thing, since it's the same kind of din Torah, if it's a random guy, he might think of his chus. But if it's his friend, he's not his enemy. He's not going to think of his chus. So what's idach? What's the other pasuk? Kidetanya, like the pasuk says, Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says, "V'lo yayev le'v'leim vakshra asai." Mikan, this tells you, and it's a chiddush. L'shnei tamidei chacham she'sein zeh zeh she'en yeshem v'din kechad. I thought this was chiddush. Two tamidei chacham who hate each other cannot sit on one din Torah together. They cannot both be dayanim. And I'm thinking the reason is because Rashi doesn't say, but I'm thinking the reason is that if Rabbi Goldberg and Rabbi Silverberg are on the Beis Din and they hate each other's guts, Rabbi Goldberg will say, I hear a taina to patur this guy. Rabbi Silverberg is going to say, no, Rabbi Goldberg, you don't know what you're talking about. He's for sure chayiv, and he'll say a reason to be chayiv, even though he wouldn't necessarily have come up with that reason had they not been so anti each other. Zak the Mishnah weiter, Masnisin. How do you check the Eidim? You would take them to a cheder, and you would intimidate them.
Every time they have a business with Eidim, they do this every time?
It sounds like it from the Mishnah. Yeah.
It's
at first I thought when I was looking at this that it was talking about Din and Fashis, but if you look at it very quickly, we're going to see in the Mishnah that it's talking about Din and Mampas. So Matzian is kaladim. We take everyone out l'chutz outside. There's a shaila and the gersa over here. Some say Matzian oisan l'chutz, but you make the room empty, so it's so that it's certainly that the Eidim themselves are not both there. And you leave the older one. You tell him, Emar, speak. How do you know that so and so is chayiv to so and so? In other words, the Yankel owes Beryl $500. That's what you're saying, right? So you see right away we're talking about money. Im Amar hu Amar li shani chayiv lai. The guy just told me, he's not a moida to the other guy, he just told me that he's chayiv to him. Or Ishpleni Amar li shu chayiv lai. Or Yankel told me that Beryl is chayiv money. Lai Amar Klam. That's nothing. That's the first case. It's not a hidah, because if I tell you that I owe someone money, I might just be wanting to. Gemara is going to say later on a svara. I just might want to be looking like I don't have too much money. It's not necessarily healthy to look like you're too wealthy.
It's a first hand. It's okay.
Not even first hand. I told you. I said to you. I Moshe Gluck say to you, Yitzi Smith, I owe Shmuel $100. Doesn't count. Why? Because I maybe don't want to be looking so rich. I don't want to be.
I want to show that whatever. Okay.
Right. So if we're going to see in a second what the case is that it does count as Aidah. And the same thing if I say that you told me that he owes somebody money, that's hearsay. That's nothing. In front of both of us, so the Malva and the Loiva and the Eidim are all standing there, and the Loiva is Maida, he's chayiv to the other guy 200 zuz. Then so that would be a good Eidos, right? Then you bring the second Eid in, and you check him. If their words turn out to be parallel, they're aligned with each other. Because just because both of them say it doesn't mean they're chayiv. Right now, the first step is, are the Eidim on the same page? If the Eidim are on the same page, now they figure out what's the halacha. If two people say he's patri, does not owe the money, but one says he's chayiv, zaka, you go basarayv. And the guy is pater. Two people said he's chayiv, and the other one said he's pater. Chayiv, you're chayiv. Now that's pasha, because Sacharab Mahatas, you go basarayv. But this case is a little funny. Echad Amar Chayiv, Echad Amar Zakah. If one dayan says he's pater and one says he's chayiv, or afilu shnayim mezakin, shnayim mechayivin. Two people say he's pater, or two people say he's chayiv. But the third one, what happened to the third one? He says, I don't know the halacha. I don't know what to say over here. The halacha is, it's as if he was never here. And it's as if you don't have a bezdin of three people, and therefore you sifa the yanim, you have to add on the yanin, and then rejudge the din. Gamra Sadabar, they finished. In other words, bezdin decided what should be, and they made a count, and they came out. This guy's chayiv, this guy's pater. And they bring the balei dinin in. Hagadol shem diyanin, the most chashav of the diyanim. Aimer, he says, Ish Plainat is Zakai, Ish Plainat is Chayiv. Yankel is Pater, Beryl is Chayiv. And how do you know, and this is something that the Chavetz Chaim brings down this halacha, how do you know that when they go out of the Bezdin, the dayan shouldn't say to one of the guys, look, I patered you. But those other two guys, what am I going to do? They said you're Chayiv. Exactly. What should I do? My chaverim were outnumbered me. And this the pasuk says, if you go speak the rechilas, because you're making the people making the baldin upset at the other two dayanim who pass him against him. Back to Gemara. What do you say when he says ma'im and you intimidate them? What do you say to them to intimidate them? Yehuda says, this is what you say. Nesim v'ruach v'geshem oyin, clouds and there's clouds and wind, but there's no rain. When is this? Ish mashal v'mit matas sheker. When a person is proud of himself in the fact that he said edus falsely. So you see that you're going to say this falsely, your mom is going to cause the world not to have rain. Amar Rava said, that's not such a big taina. That's not a reason why they should be intimidated. These Eidim, who are potentially false Eidim, could say the following saying, Shev Shni Hava Kafna, could be a hunger, a famine for 7 years, but doesn't pass to the gate of the craftsman. In other words, a guy's got a parnasa, a guy's got a trade. He makes shoes. People always are going to need shoes. So even if there's a famine, he's going to be able to make a parnasa. So they're not so worried about their parnasa, even if there's no rain and there's going to be a famine. So Rava says, what do you say to them? A mapitz is like a hammer, a mace maybe, a cherev and a sword, a shanan and a sharp arrow is like ish aina b'reyu a checker. Somebody who says a checker in his friend. In other words, you're going to cause cherev, you're going to cause misa to come to the world.
Why? Because he's threatening.
Because this is what happens when people say the sheker. Amar Rashi says, you could say shev shni hava musla. You could say the following saying, they'll say back to you, there could be death, a plague coming for 7 years, but a person whose time hasn't come, the Rebbeinu Shalom says when a person's time comes. If his time hasn't come, his time hasn't come. He's not going to die. You know, Reb Chanan Wasserman, he went back to Europe during the war. They said you're in danger. He said, if the bullet, I don't remember the exact words, but the bullet, if the Rebbeinu Shalom intends the bullet for me, it's going to come to me wherever I am. Elam Ravashi said, you say the following. Amarli Nasan Bar Marzutra told me, we tell them, Sadi Shakri, and this is very interesting, it's a psychological thing. Sadi Shakri, a false Aiden, Al-Grahi Zili, even the people who pay them look down at them. The pasuk says,
you lower yourself for money.
Yeah. So even the people who hired them think badly of them. So it's a psychological thing. You guys think you're all that on a bag of chips? Even the guys who paid you the money think you're scum, right? Except the pasuk says they're giving the Eitzah to kill Yisrael in Rashi says, Navas Israeli. I mean, they were going to wanted to kill him, and they were going to make a libel. But then they said, take two low down, no good nicks, and put them against them. And they'll be Berachta Elohim Melech. You were Mechalel Hashem, and you Mechalel the king. And then he will get put to death. But you see that what kind of people would they get? Anashim b'nei Belial. Low down people. So you see that even the people who hire such people think badly of them. So you do not want to be in that kind of category. Fine. The Mishnah continued. That it's not enough to know from hearsay. It's not enough if the loiva told the eidim separately without the malvadir. He has to actually have a haidah in front of the malva and the loiva. The loiva is moida to the malva. Excuse me. And then it works. The Gemara Mesiel Rav Yehuda, the Saraya to Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda said the name of Rav. Tzarach sheyemer atem edai. You have to say for the edus to count. You have to say the. We'll see in a second who has to say it. You have to designate these edim. You have to say you are the edim for this transaction that this haidah happened. Imer Nami, we're going to elaborate on this. Imer Nami, Amar Rav Chi Barabba, Amar Rabbi Yechanan. Rav Chi Barabba said in Rabbi Yechanan. Let's learn the gersa on the side. It says V'tzarach sheyemer atem edai instead of the parentheses. You have to say atem edai. We learn like this in a brayso. Also, when somebody said, "You owe me a mana," Amr lehain, and he said, "Yep, I owe you a mana." Yeah. Next day, the guy came back and said, "Hey, give me that money." He said, "I was kidding. I was trying to get you out of my hair. Of course, I don't owe you the money." Potter, he's potter. Not only that, even if the malva had the conversation with this guy and he knew this guy's a slippery customer, so what did he do? He stuck two edim. He had two edim behind the hedge, behind the fence, and he said to him, and he told him, "You owe me money." And the guy said, "Yep, I do." And then the malva said, "Do you want to be maida in front of Adam? Like, let's make this real. Put your money where your mouth is." He told him, the Leva said, "You're going to take me to the Torah. I don't want to do it." So he said, now the Adam who were hiding, they heard the whole thing. The next day, he said, "Give it to me." I was kidding. Potter. You're potter because he didn't say Atem Edai.
Who the
loiv is potter. He's still chayiv, of course, but the malva can't be mechayiv based on these edim because he didn't say Atem Edai. Now the brayso continues. The ain't taina l'mesis. You don't taina for a mesis. A mesis is somebody who convinces somebody else to do avodah zarah. Okay, which doesn't seem to have anything to do with our brayso, right? We suddenly switched from the halachas of being maida for halva to the avodah of being mesis to avodah zarah. What's going on over here? And that's the Gemara's kasha. Mesis man dechar shmei. Who mentioned anything about mesis? The Gemara says chsur machzor v'achitani. The price is missing a little. This is how you have to say it. Im leitan ein tainin lei. Let's say the loiva. The malva comes and says to him, you owe me money, right? The loiva said yes, and it was right. And then the malva says the next day, "Give me the money." And he says, "Mashatani bach." I'm sorry. He does not say Mashatani bach. He did not say I'm joking. He says, "No, I'm not giving it to you." So. He said, "Prove it." In other words, he says, "Prove it. Bring me Adam that I owe you." Right?
He's right behind the thing.
Those Adam are good Adam because he didn't say Adam Adam. Right? He's saying, "Bring the original Adam from the original Alva." So the Gemara says, then Bezdin doesn't say to the Malva, "Hey, the Levi could tell you Mashatani Bach." He didn't say it himself. We don't tine it for him. Why don't we taina it for him? Because we don't taina this taina for him. However, of dinei nefashos, in the case of dinei nefashos, afgav d'loitan, even if there's some taina that he could say to be pater, even if he didn't taina it, Bezdin taina like Bezdin will taina it for him, because we always say that you should try to save the person from getting killed. However, even though by dinei nefashos you taina, there's one exception to that rule. There ain't taina in l'mesis. By a mesis, you don't taina for him a reason to say why he should be pater. Mesis, even if he didn't taina it himself, let him get put to death. Ma'ishna mesis. In fact, why is mesis different than all the other mesis in the Torah? Rab Cham Bar Chanina, we perked Rab Chia Bar Abba Shmili. Rab Cham Bar Chanina said, I heard this from the shir of Rab Chia Bar Abba. Shani mesis and mesis is different. Rachmana Amar le'sachmal le'schas alav. The Torah says, don't have rachmanas and don't cover it up. You have to go and root this out, and since it says you shouldn't have rachmanas, you see, you don't come up, you don't do a taina for him. Good?
Yeah.
I'm Rab Shmuel Bar Nachman, I'm Rab Yonasan. Rab Shmuel Bar Nachman said the name of Rab Yonasan, Minayin shein taina l'mesis. How do you know this halacha that we said before a reason why you don't taina for the mesis, right? But sorry, it says a pasuk. He brings a different makar. How do you know that you don't taina for a mesis? From the original Nachash, the story of Adam and Chava and the Nachash, you have a raya that you're not taina for a mesis. Rav Simlai said, the Nachash could have had a lot of times when the Rebbeinu Shalom was upset at him for feeding Chava the Eitz Hadas. He could have had tainas, and Hashem did not taina them for him. And why did Hashem not taina for him? The Gemara is going to say what taina is in a second. And why did Hashem not taina for him? Because he did not taina. Now, what was the Nachash? The Nachash was a mesis. He convinced Chava to do an Aveira, right? So you see, you don't taina for a mesis.
That's a raya.
It's a raya, you don't taina for a mesis. In fact, what was the Nachash's taina that he could have said? He could have said, he could have said, look, I'm the Talmud. I told Chava that she should eat it. But she should listen to Hashem. She has no business listening to me, right? Therefore, why am I going to be? Yeah. Amar Chizkiah says, how do you know this klal? You might have heard this. If you add, you're subtracting, right? Shenemer, like the pasuk says, Amar Elikim. Hashem said. This is the Nachash said to Chava. I'm sorry. This is Adam Rishon said to Chava. Hashem said, don't eat from it, or you shall touch it. And don't touch it. He added on, don't touch it. And then the Nachash pushed Chava until he touched it. Nothing happened. So he said, you see, you could even eat it. It's no problem.
So the Nachash thought they'll get punished immediately if he touched it, if he ate it?
Well, that's what it sounded like. It said,
you can't touch it.
Something like that. The day you eat it, so
instant punishment.
Yeah. Rav Shashi says this concept of Kol HaMeisiv Korea we learn from over here. Pasuk says, "Amasayim b'chetzi arkai." The arayin was 2.5 amas long. Okay, now take the aleph away from amasayim. You're left with masayim. 200, right? So you took away an aleph, and instead of having 2, you ended up with 200.
Okay.
Rashi Amar Ashti Esra Urias. The pasuk by the Urias HaMishkan, the curtains that went over the top of the Mishkan, says 11 Urias. Ashti Esra. If you take the ayin away, it's going to be Shtei Esra. Shtei Esra means 12. So you take the ayin away from 11, it's going to become 12. Okay, now we go. This was a little sidebar, but now we go back to the halachas of what we were talking before. Amar Abaya. This scenario that we say that if we said Mishat Anivach, it doesn't matter, and I'm sorry, Mishat Anivach, that he's okay to say Mishat Anivach and the Aidah is not Aidah, so that the Leivah does not have to pay at this point, is only when he said this is Katzam Mishat Anivach. But if he said, what are you talking about? I was never minded to you. What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. Then Huchzak Kafran. He's Huchzak as a Kafran. He's Huchzak as a lawyer. Why? Because L'maisa we had those Eidim behind the fence over there, right? And those Eidim heard that he said this. And now he's saying, I never said it. So we know he's a shakran. And Rashi says, therefore, even in a case, this guy's a liar, we're not going to let him swear to patter himself. It's a problem, right? He's a liar.
Only because we have Eidim to prove it.
What was that?
We got blackmail, only because we have Eidim to prove it that he lied.
Right. But Rav Papa Ray, it says inside, Amalei, Rav Papa Ray, Rav Achbarada, Rav Papa Ray, the son of Rav Achbarada, argued and said, this is what we say in the name Rav. Things that are not important, people don't remember. So what this means is that the guy was not trying to be Maida. He really was Mashat Anibas. He really was joking with the guy, right? He was trying to get him off his back. Right? So what did he say? Yeah, I owe you the money. Next day, when the guy shows up and says, you owe me the money, I never said I was Maida to you. Because in his mind, he never said it. He never said it. Right. And therefore he doesn't even remember he said it. So I Eidim, if he would have known that Eidim were there, he wouldn't have said it, right? So he's just plappling.
He blackmailed him.
But he doesn't. Yeah.
Other guy.
Right. But when the Eidim will come in and say to Bezdin, we're hiding behind the fence, the guy didn't know we were there, and we heard him say this, it doesn't make him a Hochza Kafron. It doesn't make him a liar.
The way he made it sound, you thought he was joking. All right, leave me alone.
No, even without that, even if he says, yes, I owe you, I'm so sorry, I'll pay you tomorrow. In his mind, it's not a Haidah because he thinks that he's never going to get called in on that, so he doesn't even remember it the next day. Things that are important to people, right? Just think about how many people say things when they're on their phone, right? And they don't remember 2 minutes later what they said, right? So, okay. Zak the Marvaiter. There was a guy who had a scenario where somebody owed him money and he couldn't get the guy to admit it. He set him up. He put Eidim in his. He had like a four-poster bed with curtains. So he put the Eidim. He hid the Eidim in the bed, right? Amar lei man l'biyadecha. He said, Yomi Amana. Amar lei hey. He said, yep, I owe you Amana. Amar iri v'shach milav alach sadi. He said, anyone who's awake, anyone who's sleeping, they should be my Eidim, right? In other words,
he thought he was joking also with that.
No, this is the Malva.
Right, he's saying anyone that's here.
The Malva's trying to trick the guy.
Right.
He's trying to say Atam Eidah and get the guy to agree, right? And
he's saying anyone that's here listening is Eid.
Right, but the Malva is banking on the fact that he's trying to trick the guy. The guy thinks everyone's sleeping and nobody's watching.
You know they're up.
He knew they were up because he had put 2 of them behind the bed curtain, right? So Amar Lei, the guy said no. Is that considered an Atameidai?
I don't.
Amar Afkana, Amar Lei. He said no, it's not considered Atameidai. Different scenario. Yehuda Achman Eidim bekivra lachavrai. A guy went and he hid Eidim in a kever, in a grave.
Sneaky guy, this guy.
Huh?
Sneaky guy.
So the guy thought he was speaking in privacy, right? Amalei manli v'yedacha. He said Yomi Amana. Amalei hein chayi hein. Amalei hein. He said yes, I owe you Amana. So the Malva said chayu meisilav lachsati. Let all the people alive and all the people dead be Eidim for you. Amalei loy. The guy said no. He didn't fall for it. He said no. Rab Shimon said, or there's a gersa Rab Shimon ben Lakish, Rish Lakish said, Amalei, he said no. Ravina v'tem Papa, Ravina, some say Papa said, Shema mina miha. We hear from these 2 cases that Hadam Rav Yehuda Marav Tarach Shem Rat Meidai. That we said in Amud Aleph, Rav Yehuda said Shem Rav that you have to say you're my Eidim. Loishnak Yamar Leiva, Loishnak Yamar Malva, v'Shasik Leiva. Either if the Leiva says Atameidai, he's being mechayiv himself, he's saying it's a real Eidah. Or if the Malva says Atameidai and the Leiva didn't say anything. Taima.
Not that he said no, he said nothing at all. So you don't know if he said anything.
Because Taima, the Amar Leiva Loi. The reason why
he gets off is because he said no.
That the Leiva is not Chayiv.
Why? Because he said no. I'm not agreeing.
Right. But Avali Shasek, if he would have been quiet, Hachinami, that would have been Atameidai. And
maybe he didn't hear it. He wasn't Garis it.
Yeah, the Eidim will be able to say they were talking right there, and they were obviously talking. There was a guy they used to call Kav Rashu, that there's Rashi explains he has a kav of I think it's a lot of poverty.
A lot of money on the street.
A lot of shtaris out on him. He owes a lot of money. Amar, he said, he disagreed with this reputation. He said, Man Masabiel, plenty. No, only Yankel and Beryl owe me. I owe the money. Everyone else, I don't owe any money to. So though Yankel and Beryl said, "Hey, he admitted he owes money. Let's take him to Bezdin." So they took him in front of Rav Nachman to Bezdin. Rav Nachman said, "Adam asa shleilas bi'asatzmai." A person will say things to make himself look like
you said before, right?
Even though he's not actually poor. So that wasn't considered Aidah. There was a guy who was a miser. They called him, he's like a mouse that's sleeping on golden coins. Why? Because the mouse sleeps on golden coins, he's not getting any enough from it, right? Today we would call him a Scrooge, right?
Cheapskate.
Right. Kika Shachiv, when the guy was dying, this miser, Amri said, Planyu Maskavi Suzi. So and so, these two people, they
owe me money.
I owe them money.
They mad against me, okay.
Yeah, I owe them money. After he died, so the guy came, these two people came to the Yarshin and said, "Hey, your pop said that he owes us money."
Maybe they just heard him say it.
What do you mean?
Maybe they heard him say that he owes us money, and that's not true.
Yeah. Also, they took him to Bezdin in front of Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yossi. So Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yossi said, this halacha that we just said a paragraph ago, that a person will say things to make himself look poor, that's only when he's alive. But he's not saying that to make himself look poor after he dies. In other words, he knew he's dying, right? He's not doing it to make his kids look poor. So therefore,
it's a real thing.
It's a real haidah. Paru palga. L'maisa, the kids paid half the money.
Why half?
That's how much they had in liquid. Tavinu l'dina lidach palga. So these people came and brought the kids to Bezdin for the other half. Also, they came in front of Rav Chia. Before they went in front of Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yossi. Now they went for the second half in front of Rav Chia. He told them, just like a person who does not want to make himself look wealthy, a person doesn't want to make his kids look wealthy either. It's not healthy for them to look wealthy.
So how do you explain that?
So he said, so that everyone should hear that the guy in his deathbed said, "Oh, I owe a ton of money to everybody." So that way, people won't come and bother his kids, thinking they have here's somebody saying they're all discombobulated. Their father was just nifter, and they have money to throw around. Let's go and find an investment opportunity for them, right? Amrulay, Mesil v'Nahadar. So they said to him, "Let's go and return the money." In other words, it sounds like the Balei Dinin said, "Should we return the money to the Yarshin?" Amr Lahu, he told them, "For her Zakain." No, Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yossi is a Zakain. He passed already. I'm not saying to vacate that psak, but if you're coming to me about the other half, I'm saying you can't collect.
So they couldn't collect the difference then.
Yeah. So this sort of ended up in what we call a split decision.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Let's say the guy came in front of the Malva and the Leiva were there, and the Leiva is moida to the Malva in front of two Eidim, and the Leiva made a kinyan to be mechayiv himself to the Malva in front of the Eidim. Kaisvin, the Eidim could write a star saying that Yankel was moida in front of us to Beryl, that he owes him money, and made a kinyan. But if they didn't make a kinyan, in Kaisvin, you can't write it.
What do you mean a kinyan?
Like a
I know what you're saying, but but what do you mean he didn't finish up the deal? He said, I owe you money, Eidim was there.
The owing the money was before. Okay. I borrowed the money from you a week ago, right? But now, for whatever reason, we didn't have a star, right? Now I say to you, look,
in front of Eidim.
Yitzi, come with me in front of Eidim, right? And I'll be moided to you that I owe it, and I'm even going to make a kinyan in front of the Eidim showing that I'm mechayev myself the money, right? Because they didn't see you give me the money, they weren't there, right?
Okay.
So the halacha is, if there was a kinyan, the Eidim could go now and write a star saying, we were
based
there and we saw Yankel give Beryl.
No kinyan.
Yankel admitted that he borrowed money from Beryl. This is called the Shtar Idisa. Okay? But that's because a Stam Kinyan Likase meeting. A Stam Kinyan is, and the intent is that it should be written down, it should be memorialized. However, but if it's no kinyan, Vim Lav, there's no kinyan, they have no right to write it down. Because the guy could say, look, I'm masking that I owe the money, and the two Eidim are Eidim, but that's a Milval Peh. The milva pesel sometimes a little easier to deal with than milva b'shtar. If you write down a shtar on it, now it's going to be a milva b'shtar. I don't want that. But if they shleisha, if the loiva was made in front of 3 people, even though they didn't have a kinyan, Rav Amar Kaisvin, Rav Asi Amar Ein Kaisvin. They have a machlekes. Rav says you do write a shtar, even though the guy didn't make a kinyan, and Rav Ashi says not. Why does Rav say that you Kaisvin? Because Rav says 3 people is a bezdin. The halacha is hefker bezdin hefker. Bezdin is allowed to make it like a milva b'shtar. They're allowed to upgrade this halva to a milva b'shtar. So, excuse me. Therefore, even though there's no kinyan, they can write it. Zakling Marvaiter, have there was a case, Shiloh, this happened. And Rav, who said that you write a shtar, was machmir like Ravasi and didn't let the Eidim write a shtar. Amar Rav Ada bar Ava. Rav Ada bar Ava said, what? There was no kinyan. Right, there was no kinyan, right. But it was, even though it was in front of 3 people.
Got it.
Amar Rav Ada bar Ava. Rav Ada bar Ava said, Ha'idisa, this shtar of Haida that we're talking about, Zimn kasvina and Zimn like kasvina. Sometimes you write it, sometimes you don't. What's it based on? He's talking on a case of when you have 3 people. Right? Before we said if you have 3 people, we said machlekes. He's going to break it down differently. Knifi v'yasvi like kasvina. Let's say you have 3 guys sitting on a corner, shooting the breeze. And the Malva and the Leva come by, and the Leva says in front of the Malva, I am Maida in front of you that I owe money. Right? No kinyan, right?
3 people.
The reason why he did that was because they happened to be 3 people there. He would have done the same thing with 2 people, but he didn't intend to make them a bezdin. Okay, so therefore...
You have to mesached them to be a bezdin? Eidim also, you have to mesached them, right? You have to say, there's Eidim here, listen what's going on.
But we said Atameda, right. So if they were sitting, if they were gathered and sitting like Kasfinu, you can't write the shtar. Kanfinu, Ihu, if the Leva went and said, hey, Yankel, Beryl, Shmerel, come sit down over here for a minute. I want to tell you something. Right? I want to tell you something about my relationship with Ruvain. I owe Ruvain $100, right? So then, Kasfinu, then those Yankel, Beryl, and Shmerel, they could write the shtar. Rav Amar, Afilu Kanfinu Ihu, even if the Leva gathered them, like Kasfinu, you don't write it, at the Amar Lahu, until the Leva says to them, Havu alai daini, be dayanim for me. He says you need a higher bar. And Mar Baravashi says even more than that. Mar Baravashi Amar Afilu Amar Havu alai daini, even if he said be my dayanim, like Kasfinu, and you don't write it, adikavi duchta, until they establish a place. The best is going to sit here, v'shalchi, and they send the messenger, or muzamni leila beidina, and they summon the leva to bezdin, till it's like basically a real, honest, goodness bezdin. Until that happens, you can't write it without the leva say so. Zakli mar weiter. If the guy is Maida and said, I'm Maida to you that the Matalklin I borrowed from you, I'm Maida that they should belong to you, and you made a kinyan, Kaisvin, you could write it. In love, if there's no kinyan, in Kaisvin, you can't write it. And we'll see in a second why the Gemara is talking about Matalklin here. We're going to understand this line in a second when we talk about Mekarka. In Mekarkai, by Karka, even though there's no kinyan, what's the halacha? Ameimar Amar Ein Kaisvin, Marzutra Amar Kaisvin. Marzutra says you can write, but Marzutra said you can write. Why can you write it? Because Karka ain't an exelis. We have a cloud. We saw this in Bava Basra. And wherever it is, as long as we know who it belongs to, it doesn't matter who's sitting on it right now. It is in the rishus of the person who is the honest to goodness owner. And therefore, if he was moided by the Karka, then he's saying it belongs to the other guys. And if it belongs to the other guy, it belongs to the Malva, then there's nothing to talk about. You don't need a kinyan. And if you don't need a kinyan, then the Eidim could write it because they're just like they're like Rashi says where was that? What's that? Read Rashi. It's like the mixture of divine. It's not missing being collected. So the shtar is just the shtar raya. You're not doing anything with the shtar. It's a Gili Milsa Balma. That's the words I was looking for. It's just a Gili Milsa to say it belongs to this guy, not to that guy. Now, Metaltalin, we said before the case of Metaltalin is not like that. Metaltalin was always in the Rishus of the Mufsik. So if you didn't give him Rishus to write the shtar, then it stays a milva al. You can't make it a milva shtar unless they made a kinyan. If they made a kinyan, then we said a stam kinyan is lit in Likasev. It's intended to be written down. Zakmar v'hilchasa kaisvin halacha is that you do write by makarka. You do write it like Merzakra. Ravina ikla l'dimharia. Ravina got to this city called Dimharia. Amle Rav Dimi bar Rav Huna midimharia l'Ravina. Rav Dimi bar Rav Huna, who lived in that city, said to Ravina, "What's the halacha by metaltlin isnu beinayu?" The guy borrowed metaltlin, and they're still around. But the time that the idea happened, they're around. So is this like karka because it's right here? Amarle, he told him, he said, "Yep, it's like the karka, and therefore you could write a shtar even though you don't have a kinyan." Ravashi disagreed. Ravashi says, since it still has to be collected and it's in the rishus of the other guy in the meantime, therefore it's not like karka, and therefore you have to, you can't write the shtar unless there's a kinyan. Let's stop over here.
Tomorrow night, I might.